My name is Sarah, and at 30 years old, I never imagined becoming the focus of a family dispute that would reshape our legacy forever. When my beloved grandfather Henry passed away last month after a long fight with Parkinson's disease, I found out, by accident, through a misplaced call from my cousin, that I had been intentionally left out of the meeting to discuss his final wishes. Despite the sinking feeling in my stomach, I decided to attend anyway. "We've already taken care of everything," my Aunt Beth said with a tight smile. "You weren't invited for a reason." That's when the lawyer looked up and said, "But her name is the only one mentioned in the documents." The silence that followed was suffocating. If you've ever felt unfairly excluded by your family, comment where you're watching from. Family disputes happen everywhere, and here's how mine unfolded in ways no one anticipated. Growing up as the daughter of Michael, my grandfather's youngest son, wasn't always easy, but my father ensured my childhood was happy. He was the family outlier, choosing to be a history teacher instead of joining the family's construction company. My mother, Claire, was a librarian, and together they raised me with values rooted in knowledge and culture rather than wealth. Every Monday after school, we visited Grandfather Henry at his grand colonial home in Charleston's historic district, a property that had been in our family for 4 generations. But everything changed when I was 14. My father died in a car accident on his way back from an educational conference. My mother struggled to handle the emotional and financial toll. Grandpa Henry immediately stepped in. "Sarah will live with me during the week," he declared to the family, leaving no room for objections. For 6 years, I split my time between my mother's small apartment and my grandfather's house. While my mom worked extra hours at the library, Grandpa became a second father to me. "You're just like me, Sarah," he would say while walking me through his rose garden. "You value people and memories, not just shiny things." His words shaped my character more than he ever realized. Grandpa Henry wasn't a typical wealthy patriarch. He dressed simply, donated to the local library, and supported cultural projects quietly. The colonial house was his only indulgence, a home full of stories and old books rather than displays of wealth. My Uncle Rick and Aunt Beth never understood his lifestyle. They lived in gated communities, drove luxury cars, and constantly pressured him to modernize. When I decided to follow my mother's path and specialize in preserving historical documents, my extended family didn't get it. During New Year's dinner when I was 23, Uncle Rick approached me. "Sarah, you could work for the family business. Why waste time on such a narrow career?" he asked, sipping his expensive whiskey with a look of disdain. "Your grandfather could get you an executive position tomorrow." I smiled and said, "I want to create my own path." My cousins Daniel and Camila, both business graduates working for the family company, shared his disbelief. Camila once asked me sincerely, "But don't you want real money?" The idea of valuing something beyond financial success was foreign to them. When Grandpa turned 82, his health began to decline. I visited him 3 times a week, bringing new books, helping with his letters, and simply talking. We spent hours organizing his personal library, and he shared stories about our ancestors that no one else cared to hear. His cinnamon cookies were famous in the family, but only I knew the secret was a pinch of nutmeg. Even as his body weakened, his mind remained sharp. He told me about our great-great-grandmother, one of the first women to open a school in the region, and how the family fortune began with building the local railroad. Stories of perseverance and failure that revealed the family's real history behind its polished image. "Remember, Sarah," he said one quiet afternoon, "wealth doesn't make a person worthy. Character does." Meanwhile, the rest of the family visited only occasionally. Uncle Rick came monthly, spending more time inspecting the property than connecting with his father. Aunt Beth brought gifts Grandpa couldn't use and left after an hour. My cousins showed up mostly for holiday meals. In December, just before Grandpa passed away, he gave me a small carved wooden box. "This was my father's," he said, handing it to me. Inside was a simple pocket watch, not flashy, but deeply meaningful. "The others will only see an old watch. You'll know who carried it." I didn't realize then that this gift would later be used against me. Our last conversation stays with me. A week before he died, Grandpa held my hand. "Sarah, I've been watching all of you for years," he said, "and soon I'll be settling accounts." I assumed he meant finding peace before he passed. I didn't know he was planning something that would change everything. The first major rift in our family happened 2 years earlier. Uncle Rick called a meeting at Grandpa's house, supposedly about his medical care. When I arrived, there was also a real estate agent. "We've been discussing selling the farm," Rick announced. Grandpa had spent every summer there since childhood. It's empty most of the year and expensive to maintain. I glanced at Grandpa. His face was neutral, but I knew the tension in his eyes. "Did Grandpa agree to this?" I asked. "Dad understands it's practical," Rick waved me off. "At his age, he can't enjoy it anyway." "Actually," I said, "he told me last week he wants to spend a few weeks there this summer." The room went silent. Aunt Beth cleared her throat. "Sarah, dear, maybe you misunderstood." Grandpa finally spoke. "I told Sarah, I'm not selling my farm." The realtor left quietly. Afterward, Rick turned on me. "You always do this," he snapped. "You think you know best because you're here all the time, but you don't understand the finances." "What I understand," I said calmly, "is that Grandpa should decide what happens to his property." Later that night, Rick cornered me in the kitchen. "You may think you're special to him, but you're overstepping. Don't forget who built this family's wealth. It wasn't your father." The jab about my dad hurt, but I stood firm. This isn't about money. It's about respecting Grandpa's wishes. From then on, Rick began a quiet campaign against me. He hinted to relatives that I was manipulating Grandpa for the inheritance. By Christmas, it was obvious many relatives had turned against me. Aunt Beth forgot to include me in the family photo. Camila made pointed remarks about opportunists. Even relatives on my mother's side grew distant. I tried to address the rumors, emailing my uncles to say I had no interest in Grandpa's money, only his comfort and dignity. Aunt Beth's reply was cold. "We all want what's best for Dad." Others didn't respond at all. By the next Easter, the family held a gathering at Rick's house without inviting me. I found out through Camila's social media posts. In one photo, Grandpa looked frail and confused. I called him that night. "Did you enjoy Easter?" I asked. "It was fine," he said softly. "But they didn't cook the fish the way I like it. Rick's house is always too cold." "I wish I'd been there," I said. He paused. "You weren't invited?" The surprise in his voice confirmed my suspicions. He hadn't been told I was excluded. As Grandpa's health worsened, the family restricted my visits. Aunt Beth created a schedule allowing me only 2 hours on Sunday afternoons. When I arrived, someone else was often there, making private talks impossible. I found creative ways to maintain contact, bringing him lunch on my days off. His nurse, Mrs. Carmen, would call me directly when he needed company. Last Christmas, I wasn't invited at all. "We're keeping it small this year. Dad needs rest," Beth messaged. But small meant everyone except me. So on Christmas Eve, I sent Grandpa his favorite cinnamon cookies, a blue wool shawl, and a photo album of the farm. When Grandpa passed away in March, I didn't hear it from the family. Mrs. Carmen called me in tears. By the time I arrived, Rick and Beth were already discussing funeral arrangements. "Oh, Sarah," Beth said sweetly, "we were just about to call you." The funeral became a stage for family politics. I was seated in the third row behind distant relatives. I wasn't asked to speak, despite having spent more time with Grandpa than anyone. Rick's speech focused on business and legacy. I kept thinking about Grandpa's words, settling accounts, never realizing how true they would become. 2 weeks later, while making dinner, I received a text from Camila, clearly meant for someone else. "Meeting tomorrow at Dr. Foster's office, 2 p.m. Mom said not to tell Sarah." Another message followed. "Sorry, wrong group. Ignore." My stomach dropped. They weren't even going to tell me about the will reading. I debated all night. I didn't care about Grandpa's money, but I knew he'd want me there. By morning, I'd decided. I took a day off work, dressed in a simple navy dress Grandpa always liked, professional but not flashy, and drove to the law office. In the parking lot, I sat for minutes, summoning courage. "Stand up for yourself, Sarah," I could almost hear Grandpa saying. When the elevator opened, I saw them all: Rick, Beth, Daniel, Camila, even distant cousin Luke. Aunt Beth's face froze, then shifted into disapproval. "Sarah," she said loudly, "what are you doing here?" "I'm here for Grandpa's will reading," I replied. "You weren't invited. This is for family," Rick said, stepping toward me. "I am family," I said simply. Camila cut in. Family that respected Grandpa's wishes instead of trying to influence him. Before I could answer, a man with graying hair and glasses appeared. "Are you all here for the Henry estate?" he asked, noticing the tension. Aunt Beth smiled at him. "Dr. Foster, there's been a misunderstanding. Sarah shouldn't be included today." Dr. Foster looked confused. "Sarah Henry's granddaughter?" "Yes," I confirmed. He checked his clipboard. "Then she should definitely be here. Please, everyone, come in." The conference room was elegant but understated, with a long mahogany table. I sat near the door, whispers swirling around me. Dr. Foster cleared his throat. "I was Henry's friend as well as his lawyer for over 25 years. He was very clear about his wishes, and I intend to follow them exactly." Beth interrupted. "We've already distributed most things. We didn't want to waste your time." Dr. Foster frowned. "That's highly irregular. Nothing should have been distributed yet." He looked at me. "And as for Sarah not being invited," he opened the folder. "That would be especially odd considering the will's contents." "What do you mean?" Rick demanded. "I mean," Dr. Foster said evenly, "that her name is the only one mentioned in the will." The room went silent. Rick stammered. "That's impossible." "I assure you it's not," Dr. Foster said firmly. "Perhaps I should just read the will as Henry intended." He began. "I, Henry, being of sound mind and body," the legal wording continued before he reached the heart of it. "I therefore leave all my properties, both real and personal, including but not limited to my main residence at 47 Flower Street, my rural property in Pine Valley, all financial accounts, investments, personal belongings, and family heirlooms to my granddaughter Sarah." A collective gasp. Camila dropped her glass. "This can't be legal," Rick sputtered. Dr. Foster continued calmly. "There is also a personal letter for Sarah, but Henry wanted me to clarify that this decision was made with full awareness and careful thought." Beth was crying now. "After everything we did for him," Daniel leaned forward. "We're going to contest this. He wasn't of sound mind." Dr. Foster shook his head. "I would advise against that." Henry anticipated this reaction. He underwent thorough cognitive evaluations by 3 neurologists before making these decisions. All certified his full competency. As reality sank in, I remember Grandpa's words. He had been testing us, observing who cared and who didn't. Dr. Foster handed me a sealed envelope. "Henry wanted you to have this privately, but you may choose to share parts of it." I opened it, hands trembling. "My dear Sarah," it began, "if you're reading this, I've moved on. You are my sole heir. I know the family isn't taking it well. For years, I watched how each of you behaved. Rick visited only to discuss my assets. Beth brought gifts but stayed briefly. The grandchildren, except you, called only on birthdays. But you came because you cared. You organized my library, listened to my stories, and treated me like a person, not a bank account. I've been testing everyone. I mentioned valuable items near different relatives to see their reactions. I noted who asked about my health and who asked about my portfolio. You were the only one who never failed. With love and full confidence in you, Grandpa Henry." I looked up, tears streaming as the room descended into chaos. Rick was on the phone, Beth berating Dr. Foster, Camila crying theatrically, Daniel staring at the wall. "Everyone should also know this," Dr. Foster said loudly. Henry documented everything: visits, conversations, behaviors. He had installed a home security system 2 years earlier that logged every entry and exit. He also saved text messages and emails, and even recorded conversations, legal in South Carolina with the consent of just one party. He opened another folder of evidence. Henry had also noticed that belongings had gone missing from his house without permission. So he kept a detailed inventory with photos of all his possessions. "This is absurd," Aunt Beth scoffed, though her tone lacked confidence. "Is it?" Dr. Foster asked, raising an eyebrow. "Then explain why the Tiffany lamp from Henry's study is now in your living room, or why Camila wore Henry's diamond bracelet at a charity gala, or why paintings from his farm were photographed in Rick's office." Their faces turned pale. "The will has a condition," Dr. Foster continued. "Any property taken must be returned within 30 days. Otherwise, legal action will follow." Uncle Rick erupted. "This is your fault," he shouted, pointing at me with a trembling finger. "You manipulated an old man and turned him against his family." I thought back to afternoons spent with Grandpa, talking about books and family history, taking him to appointments when no one else could, or bringing him his favorite ice cream just because it was Tuesday. "No, Uncle Rick," I replied steadily. Grandpa knew exactly what he was doing. He always did. The following weeks were a nightmare. I left Dr. Foster's office, clutching Grandpa's letter, my family's threats still echoing. Rick's final words to me were, "This isn't over." And he was right. The next morning, the phone started ringing before dawn. First Aunt Beth, then Camila, then relatives I barely knew. Some demanded explanations, some accused, and others tried to negotiate for items they felt entitled to. I stopped answering, but voicemails piled up. Sarah, it's Aunt Beth. Do the right thing. Your grandfather wasn't in his right mind. Call me back. Hi, it's Daniel. That silver set was promised to me. I have the email to prove it. This is Uncle Rick. My lawyer will be contacting you. What you've done is disgraceful and won't stand in court. By week's end, the harassment spread online. Camila posted a veiled comment. Amazing how some people fake caring about family just to get what they want. True colors always show. Distant relatives messaged me, some condemning, others suddenly friendly now that I had inherited money. I changed my number and locked down social media, but the stress mounted. I couldn't sleep. Headaches were constant, and I began making mistakes at work. Sarah, is everything all right? My supervisor asked gently after I misfiled a rare donation. When I broke down and explained, she urged me to take leave. Our patrons need you at your best. Take time for yourself. That week, I finally went to Grandpa's house, now legally mine. The room smelled faintly of his lavender cologne, but the emptiness hit me. Entire spaces were stripped bare. The hallway clock was gone, his figurine collection missing pieces, his desk emptied of personal mementos. They had even taken sentimental items, the hand-knitted blanket from his mother, travel souvenirs, and his recipe book with notes in the margins. Sitting on his stripped bed, I cried until I couldn't anymore. Then, in the back of his closet, I discovered a hidden safe. Using his birth date, I unlocked it. Inside, a leather journal, several flash drives, and a note in his handwriting. For Sarah, use if necessary. The journal recorded everything: visits, conversations, and items that disappeared. The drives contain photos, emails, and recordings. One entry described Rick pressuring him to sell property, dismissing him as irrational, when in fact the land had recently doubled in value. Another entry detailed Beth and Camila's visit, with jewelry missing afterward, captured by new hallway cameras. With this, I returned to Dr. Foster. I need to fight back, I said. Henry prepared for this, he replied. I'll connect you with an estate lawyer. That lawyer, Patricia Silva, was known for being relentless. After reviewing the files, she said, "This is one of the most documented cases I've ever seen." She drafted cease and desist letters to everyone involved. Predictably, Uncle Rick filed a lawsuit claiming undue influence. Aunt Beth began calling the library, spreading lies that I had neglected patrons to manipulate Grandpa. My professional reputation was under attack. The stress left me with insomnia and panic attacks. My doctor prescribed medication and therapy. Then, a reporter contacted me about the estate dispute dividing one of Charleston's oldest families. At my lowest point, I almost gave in and signed away everything. But then, a message came from Mrs. Carmen, Grandpa's nurse. I still have things he wanted you to keep safe. Can we meet? She handed me a box with memory cards and a recorder. On them were dozens of videos of Grandpa. In one, dated a year before his death, he sat upright, eyes clear. My name is Henry. Today is September 15th. I record this willingly, with full mental capacity. Dr. Foster appeared on camera to confirm. Grandpa explained his choices, citing specific events and behaviors. His reasoning was precise and undeniable. Watching those videos, I felt his presence. He hadn't just left me things. He left me proof. In his final video, recorded weeks before passing, his voice softened but remained firm. Sarah, if you're seeing this, it means things have gotten hard, as I expected. Remember what I taught you. Sometimes kindness means setting boundaries. I didn't raise you to be a doormat. That gave me strength. I brought the recordings to Miss Silva. She smiled. This changes everything. Henry built an unshakable case. We filed inventories with probate court, sent legal demands, and moved to dismiss Rick's lawsuit, backed by Grandpa's videos. Cease and desist letters shut down defamatory calls. Nurses and caregivers confirmed I had visited dozens more times than my relatives. Financial records revealed Rick's unpaid loans and Beth's misuse of Grandpa's accounts. Miss Silva then suggested a family meeting. When everyone arrived, she presented the evidence. Grandpa's face appeared on a screen. My name is Henry. I record this of my own free... Well, as the video played, Rick turned pale, Beth covered her mouth, and Camila cried. There are 16 more videos, Miss Silva noted. She then revealed the documented list of stolen items, over $800,000 in value. Silence filled the room. Return everything within 7 days or face charges, she concluded. Rick's lawyer urged him to reconsider. Within days, the lawsuit was dropped. Soon, belongings were returned by movers, jewelry mailed back. No apologies, just compliance. Aunt Beth later called me. We didn't realize how much those years meant to Dad. You never asked, I replied. Eventually, I allowed relatives to choose one sentimental item each. Camila requested the recipe book, Daniel the toolbox, Beth a watercolor painting. Rick refused. These gestures didn't erase the damage, but began a small healing. Months later, the court closed the case. I was officially Henry's sole heir. Standing on his porch at sunset, I whispered, "We did it, Grandpa." 6 months later, I had restored the house with touches of my own. While organizing his desk, I found a letter addressed to me. My dear Sarah, if you're reading this, the storm has passed. This inheritance wasn't about punishment. It was about recognizing the heart you carry. Money can corrupt, but in the right hands, it becomes security for generosity. Don't let it change you. Use it to live fully. Set boundaries, but leave space for reconciliation. I'm proud of you. Tears blurred my eyes. Even now, Grandpa was guiding me. I honored him by starting a scholarship fund, planning a foundation for the elderly, and finally taking the Europe trip we dreamed of. Healing with the family came slowly. Camila reached out. Daniel included me at his wedding. Beth sent a brief Christmas card. Rick never spoke to me again. I accepted that. A year later, I hosted a memorial dinner at the house with those who truly cared. Caregivers, neighbors, Dr. Foster, and even distant relatives who had stayed genuine. We shared stories, laughter, and tears. Dr. Foster told me, the real miracle isn't that some ties survived. It's that you stayed true to yourself. That was Henry's legacy. And he was right. The inheritance gave me freedom, but the true gift was Grandpa's lesson: integrity over greed, courage over fear. As fireflies lit the evening, I whispered to the night air, "We made it, Grandpa. We honored your truth." Have you ever had to stand firm against family pressure? Share your story in the comments. And if this touched you, subscribe for more stories about family, inheritance, and finding strength in adversity. Because sometimes the most valuable inheritance isn't wealth, but the lessons and love we carry forward.